I took advantage of being at the seaside to lay in a considerable store of sucking stones. They were pebbles, but I called them stones. Yes, on this occasion I laid in a considerable store. I distributed them equally among my 4 pockets, and sucked them turn and turn about. This raised a problem which I solved in the following way. I had, say, 16 stones, 4 in each of my 4 pockets, these being the 2 pockets of my trousers and the 2 pockets of my coat. Taking a stone from the right pocket of my coat and putting it in my mouth, I replaced it in the right pocket of my coat by a stone from the right pocket of my trousers, which I replaced by a stone from the left pocket of my trousers, which I replaced by a stone from the left pocket of my coat, which I replaced by the stone which was in my mouth, as soon as I had finished sucking it. Thus there were still 4 stones in each of my 4 pockets, but not quite the same stones, and when the desire to suck took hold of me again, I drew again on the right pocket of my coat, certain of not taking the same stone as the last time. And while I sucked it, I rearranged the other stones in the way I have just described, and so on. But this solution did not satisfy me fully, for it did not escape me that by an extraordinary hazard, the 4 stones circulating thus might always be the same 4. In which case, far from sucking 16 stones turn and turn about, I was really only sucking 4, always the same, turn and turn about. But I shuffled them well in my pockets, before I began to suck, and again, while I sucked, before transferring them, in the hope of obtaining a more general circulation of the stones from pocket to pocket. But this was only a makeshift that could not long content a man like me. So I began to look for something else. And the first thing I hit upon was that I might do better to transfer the stones 4 by 4 instead of 1 by 1. That is to say, during the sucking, to take the stones remaining in the right pocket of my coat and replace them by the 4 in the right pocket of my trousers, and these by the 4 in the left pocket of my trousers, and these by the 4 in the left pocket of my coat, and finally these by the 3 from the right pocket of my coat, plus the 1, as soon as I had finished sucking it, which was in my mouth. Yes, it seemed to me at first that in doing so I would arrive at a better result. But on further reflection, I had to change my mind, and confess that the circulation of the stones 4 by 4 came to exactly the same thing as their circulation 1 by 1. For if I was certain of finding each time in the right pocket of my coat 4 stones totally different from their immediate predecessors, the possibility nevertheless remained of my always chancing on the same stone within each group of 4, and consequently of my sucking not the 16 stones turn and turn about as I wished, but in fact 4 only, always the same, turn and turn about. So I had to seek elsewhere than in the mode of circulation, for no matter how I caused the stones to circulate, I always ran the same risk. It was obvious that by increasing the number of my pockets, I was bound to increase my chances of enjoying my stones in the way I planned. This is to say, one after the other until their number was exhausted. Had I had 8 pockets, for example, instead of the 4 I did have, then even the most diabolical hazard could not have prevented me from sucking at least 8 of my 16 stones. The truth is, I should have had 16 pockets in order to be quite easy in my mind. And for a long time I could see no other conclusion than this, that short of having 16 pockets, each with its stone, I could never reach the goal I had set for myself, short of an extraordinary hazard. And if, at a pitch, I could double the number of my pockets, were it only by dividing each pocket in 2, with the help of a few safety pins, let us say, to quadruple them seemed to be more than I could manage, and I did not feel inclined to take all the trouble for a half measure, for I was beginning to lose all sense of measure after all this wrestling and wrangling to say an all or nothing. And if I was tempted for an instant to establish a more equitable proportion between my stones and my pockets by reducing the former to the number of the latter, it was only for an instant, for it would have been an admission of defeat. And sitting on the shore before the sea, the 16 stones spread out before my eyes, I gazed at them in anger and perplexity. For just as I had difficulty in sitting on a chair or in an armchair because of my stiff leg, you understand, so I had none in sitting on the ground because of my stiff leg. For it was about this time that my good leg, good in the sense that it was not stiff, began to stiffen. I needed a prop, under the ham, you understand, and even under the whole length of the leg, the prop of the earth. And while I gazed thus at my stones, revolving interminable martingales all equally defective, and crushing handfuls of stones so that they ran through my fingers and fell back on the strand. Yes, while thus I lulled my mind and part of my body, one day suddenly it dawned on the former dimly that I might perhaps achieve my purpose without increasing the number of my pockets or reducing the number of my stones, but simply by sacrificing the principle of trim.